Hey guys, Scott here. Today we're going to determine what is the best perk in the entirety of Dead by Daylight. This includes killer perks, survivor perks, every single perk in the game. There's certainly a lot of contenders, Noed, Dead Hard, Borrow Time, Decisive Strike, Adrenaline, all that stuff. There's a lot of contenders, but I do think there is one perk that is slightly better than the rest. And instead of having a watch mojo countdown, we're just going to talk about it immediately. I think it is Dead Hard. I think Dead Hard is now the best perk in the game. Prior to the whole hit validation thing, I did not think that was the case. There were several other stronger contenders, but now that Dead Hard basically works as intended and even more so, now it, I think, is the best perk in the game. Now, probably the main arguments you'd be able to make against that, at least on the survivor side of perks, which ones are possibly as strong. The contenders would be Decisive Strike and Borrow Time, right? Those are probably the two most significant game-changing perks that someone can think of, because they really change how the killer has to play. Even if the killer doesn't have it, they just have to assume that they have Decisive Strike or Borrow Time. So they just have to kind of change their playstyle, and it makes it so the incredibly efficient strat of getting someone out of the lobby as quickly as possible is not always possible, or it ends up being more trouble than it's worth eating a Borrow Time or a Decisive Strike or even both. So it can have a very, very large impact on the game. So you might say, well, how is Dead Hard possibly stronger than that when it basically stops the killer from instantly taking someone out of the match? The thing is, what is the similarity between DS and Borrowed Time? They both require someone to be on a hook at some point. And my argument here is that Dead Hard is the best perk in the game at making you not even get to that stage to begin with. So the whole argument I'm trying to make is that Dead Hard prevents you from even getting into a scenario where you can even start to use Borrowed Time and Decisive Strike. Now, obviously, the killer is still going to get hooks. It's inevitable eventually. But Dead Hard is the best perk in the game at preventing you from getting hooked. On almost every killer, there's a couple of things that will counter it. If you're in like a dead zone with a Leatherface or, like a Myers or like someone with a one-shot, then yes, Dead Hard is not that useful. But even past that first initial down, any subsequent hooks become significantly harder because now you're injured against the one-shot killer. And even then, most one-shot killers, it's not like just because they have a one-shot, they can just hit you with it whenever they want. Like with Bubba or Billy or basically anyone with a one-shot, they can't just do it because you can probably have a window or something that can make them force you to M1. So Dead Hard is the best perk in the game because it is the single best chase extender by a, I think, wide margin. I used to think that wasn't really the case, and in fact, I think Overcome would have been very close to Dead Hard, but ever since Validation has been added, there's no real danger to using it anymore. Even like things like going against Huntress or like Demo or like any killer where it's a very fast thing and hard to react to, I didn't think Dead Hard was that strong because 9 times out of 10, they'd just be exhausted on the ground unless they did it really early, in which case that I could just bait it out, right? Because you had to bait it out, it was a lot easier to deal with because survivors would have to preemptively Dead Hard. Now, if I'm demo lunging at someone or throwing a hatchet, they can unreaction press the button and it'll work. So it is now the best perk in the game for basically removing a hit, and it makes you not even get to the stage to begin with that DS and Borrowed Time will have their very impactful effects. So that's my main argument. I'm curious to hear what you guys think, but ever since Validation, I think Dead Hard is now the single best perk in the entire game, more impactful. Something like Noed can be not only prevented, but destroyed once it up. You can't really stop Noed short of a couple of niche things. There's like Mindbreaker for 5 seconds. And other than that, there's like a couple of very niche perks that don't see much use. And there's some very good add-ons, like Huntress Exhaustion Hatchets are exceptional for that reason, but most killers don't have access to that. So that is why I think Dead Hard is the best perk in the game now. Curious to hear what you guys think. Thanks for watching. See ya.